name's James Chinchillo, and I'm a fourth generation walnut farmer, and in amongst 4,600 other farmers that grow walnuts here in California. And California grows 99% of the United States walnut production. Imagine that this field was completely bare. What we would do is we would level it, and then we would come through and put what are called ridges, and these ridges are basically lines of soil that are up higher than the rest of the ground. And then we come through with either two different types of baby trees. If we plant a tree in year one, it takes us at least 4 to 5 years before we can harvest the walnuts. We start our growing season in November. This is when we start tracking chill hours to make sure that these walnuts get enough wintertime cold weather to produce well. The other thing that we do is we take into account planting cover crop. One is they bring in pollinators, bees and other beneficial insects into the orchard. Two is they send roots really deep down into the ground. So just like a bunch of straws in the ground, what that does is it allows for the water, not only rainwater, but when we irrigate, to go down into the ground to get into these trees better. In January, these trees are naked. They don't have any leaves on them. They look like they're dead. In and around March, they start to produce a little bit of life. So there's some baby leaves that come out, and there's also what are called catkins that come out. And catkins, they look like a caterpillar, and they're the flower part of the walnut, and it allows for pollination to take place throughout the orchard. And at that time, there's baby nuts that are producing, and they accept the pollination from the catkins to produce walnuts. After pollination has taken place, we then want to make sure that we're managing the tree and making sure that it's nice and happy. And a couple ways that we do that is making sure that we apply plenty of water for these trees. We apply water roughly every 10 days, and we do it through sprinklers and or drip. And drip is basically a tube with little holes in it, and it allows for the water to exit out of those little holes. And then sprinklers, like I say, they're just like what you would normally see in a lawn. A little bit different out here in the orchard, but same idea. The walnuts start out, they're very, very small, smaller than a pea. And during the growing season, they get bigger and bigger and bigger. And during that process, they're green. They're not brown like that you may suspect, because they're encapsulated by what's called a hull. And this hull is what protects the nut as it's growing. And in September, we start to see the hull, the green part, start to split. And that splitting process is a cue to us farmers that the walnuts are almost ready to be harvested. We start to think about when we're gonna shake, and that's the first part of the harvest process. And what we do is we have a machine that grabs the trunk of these trees and shakes the trees so much that it releases all the walnuts from the trees. And it's amazing. The amount of walnuts that come down, it's almost like rain. It's a super, super cool process. After the shaking process, all the walnuts end up on the ground, and we use a machine that sweeps all the walnuts into a single row. And what happens as well is all of the small sticks, leaves, or anything else that might have been left on the orchard floor ends up in that row. And we come through after our sweeping with a conditioner. So what this conditioner does is it brings the walnuts up off the ground and blows out any of the junk that's in the rows, and then lays the walnuts right back down. After the conditioning process, we come through with what's called our harvester, and also known as a pickup machine. The harvester picks up the walnuts, and there's another cleaning process that takes place in the harvester. The walnuts then go into a trailer, and then this trailer is then transported to our huller and dryer.
I'm Steve Lagorio, partners in Lagorio Brothers Farms, and we're at our walnut huller, where the walnuts come in out of the field, and this is where we process them. We take the hull off, take all the culls out, and dry them. When they come in here, our goal is to have them as clean and obviously as dry as, that's why it's a huller dryer. So when the truck pulls over the pit, we open it up, the bottom, they dump out, and they go up an elevator. The first part of the huller is the de-sticker, takes the big sticks out. And then from there, there's people that take rocks and other sticks that the de-sticker misses, and they drop into a float tank. So the walnuts float up, and the rocks and anything that's bad sinks to the bottom. And from there, it goes into the huller. And it goes through these brushes that take the hull off and clean them up. And then they go through a tumbling, they tumble around through water and end up going through an air leg. And that sucks all the bad walnuts that have nothing in them that look like a good walnut. It sucks them out. Then the next steps, they drop into electronic eyes. So electronic eyes, they distinguish green, black, and they kick all the green and black out, throw them to the side, and they drop down. And another electronics take the good ones and the green ones and kick them back to the hauler again. So they come in at different variances of moisture. That's what we have in the drying bins. They're censored. You want to dry them down to at least 8% moisture where they won't spoil. 8% moisture means they will not mold, because all walnuts aren't cracked within a month, so you want to make sure they're dry when they're stored. To dry them, the big fans, that's the fans that blow the air. You use air and heat, and we set the temperature at 110 degrees. You don't want to have too much heat. If you put too much heat, you might change the color of the walnut inside the shell, the kernel, if it's drying too fast. And the fan blows the hot air through there, and that's what dries them. And then when it's dry, it goes out to the trucks. You'll see the sets of doubles, and the dry walnuts fall into the trucks, and they're taken to the processing plant.
Hi, I'm Kevin Bennett from Morada Produce. I'm the production manager here. About 3/4 of our product is export, where it is shipped to Asia, Europe, the Middle East, and another 1/4 of it is right here in the US. We've seen them come from the orchard. Now they're here at the shed. The trailer comes in, it's weighed and unloaded. They have been hulled. Most of the sticks and debris has been removed at the huller, but there's still a little bit here. The product will be fumigated to ensure that there are no pests and it is a healthy product for us to eat. After they're fumigated, they are warehoused and eventually they will be processed on our sheller. So when it comes through the sheller, we're trying to remove the shell. And sometimes when it's cracked, it's made into little pieces like this, but we're trying our best to make a complete half. As you can see here, there's 2 halves right here. And if you can get fully intact halves, that's better for our customer. They prefer them. When it goes through, there are 2 rollers that are very close together, and the full halves go all the way across it and the little pieces fall through. So it'll size out, and we separate the pieces from large to small, going across a bed of holes, each one getting progressively larger. The smaller ones fall through, the bigger ones then fall through further along, and then the largest size fall through even farther at the end. The defective product is removed and it can be sold as either bird feed or oil stock, and the shell is actually ground up and used to pave the roads that we have around our farms. Once we have the kernels in a bin, we put it across our optical sorters, where we use a combination of lasers and cameras to determine if that piece is a kernel, a shell, or a defective kernel, and it is removed if it is a defective kernel or an off-colored kernel or a shell. The product that is accepted is then put across the kernel packing line, where we have several sorters there to make sure that there's no defective kernels left over. After the kernels are sorted by the ladies, we go through the packing line, which we have a machine that makes the boxes, that puts the bags inside of the boxes. It goes through a large box filler, which also goes through a metal detector to ensure that there's no metal in our product and it's safe for people to consume. After the box is filled, it goes across a shaker, which ensures that the product is nice and level and the box closes evenly. It is then either vacuum sealed or just sealed, and it'll go through a box topper and onto an automatic palletizer. Once they're boxed, they are put on a pallet and loaded into one of our many warehouses, where it waits to be shipped off to one of our customers.
So walnuts are particularly good for a couple reasons. One is to grow big, strong muscles. Protein is necessary, and there's quite a bit of protein in walnuts. The other thing is walnuts have what are called omega-3 fatty acids, and omega-3 fatty acids are really good for brain health and also for heart health. So I eat walnuts on a daily basis for all those benefits, and also find walnuts in different types of salads, in brownies that my grandmother used to make. And I know that even, like, for example, Cliff Bar, they're utilizing walnuts in their energy bars, and there's a plethora of different places that walnuts are utilized in. One of my favorite ways to eat walnuts is I put walnuts, dark chocolate and dried cherries together. And it's a fantastic mix, super tasty. Walnuts are also used in a way just like some other nuts, and there's milk that's made from walnuts, and also just mixing them in with any type of other mix, like for example, if you want to mix them with M&Ms or other types of chocolates, they're a fantastic nut to mix with other foods as well. The really cool thing about walnuts as well is to put coatings on the outside. And my grandmother, she used to make a candied walnut. And I remember every Christmas she would have these ready, and they were just awesome. I'd eat more than I could really should have. It was another great way to eat walnuts as well. Now that you've seen behind the scenes of the California walnut industry, why not walnuts?